Hi, everybody. Looks like we're all getting signed on, which is amazing. Thanks for joining us. We'll try and get started just a few minutes after the hour. So everybody, we have about 50 people signed up for today. There's 16 logged on, so we're just gonna give everybody a couple of minutes. So our numbers are up to 19 attendees. We're gonna get started at 2 after. All right, everybody, let's get this party started. I'm Brigham Wrinkle, the Executive Director of the Community Foundation, serving Southwest Colorado, and I'd like to say thank you for joining us. We are at 24 participants, and I know that more people will be joining us as the afternoon ticks on. I'd like you to say thank you for joining us for this free Zoom webinar for nonprofits, Something to Chew On. We hope that you grabbed your lunch and you're ready to dive into our presentation today, which is Reinventing Fundraising During COVID-19, Replacing the Handshake with a Thumbs Up emoji. Nonprofit consultant Denise Clark joins us today to share online fundraising strategies to replace in-person asks and events. Learn how to enhance your individual donation. Let me just start over. Learn how to enhance your individual donor program and deepen relationships with donors. Discuss how to balance drastic measures with frugality and reserves. Denise even has some special surprise guests that will join us today. So Denise, give us a little wave.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Brigham.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So Denise runs a nonprofit consulting practice based in Telluride in Denver and serves organizations statewide. She has over 25 years experience in this sector and is passionate about supporting nonprofit leaders. She facilitates retreats, trains boards, coaches executive directors, and connects people to resources, ideas, and each other. In her free time, Denise is probably listening to jazz, enjoying spicy food, hiking with friends, or traveling. Although not much traveling right now.
Nope.
So just to remind you, some door prizes. We have 2 organizations that are on the call today will win a free 1-hour consultation with Denise. Everyone who signed up gets their name put in the hat. At the end of the webinar, we will draw a name of our lucky winner. If you ask a question, your name gets put in a second time. You must be present to win. So here's how to ask a question. You can answer your question anytime in our chat box, and we will monitor the questions and try to get everything answered. If we completely run out of time, there will be a lot, and there are a lot of questions, we will follow up via email. During the presentation, you will have the chance to raise your hand, and we will unmute you, and you can ask a question live. All right. So if you're anything like me, you've taken the time to be here. Just eat your lunch and listen and learn, and don't be distracted. Don't answer emails. Don't do any of those other things. Really take this hour for you to learn. And I promise I'm going to do the same thing. So without further ado, I'm going to let Denise take over from here.
Thank you, Brigham, and thank you all for being here today. I'm really excited to spend the next hour and a half with you to talk about how to reinvent your fundraising strategies during COVID-19. So let's get started. So, whoops. For some reason, there we go. Okay, I had to click my mouse. I just wanted to talk about Zoom norms a little bit. If you want to customize your name, you can do that in the participants panel under the More button. If you want to add your pronouns, we'll be muting and unmuting each other as far as panelists today, but it will be us that will unmute you if you want to ask a question. So we're in the webinar format of Zoom. A video on and off, so your videos will be off for the majority, if not all, of the webinar, and I'll be popping in and out via video, as will my guests. We'll be presenting a few polls throughout our time together today. We'll ask questions in chat. You can ask questions in chat. We'll make comments. I'll be asking you occasionally to put something in chat, so we'll really use that as one of our main forms of communication. And then I might ask you a couple of times to raise your hand if you've done something, kind of a yes or no question. So that's a way for me to see you respond just with an icon, and then you can ask questions by raising your hand like Brigham mentioned. And then reactions such as thumbs up and clapping are not available in the Zoom webinar format. So just know if you're looking for those, they're not available today. And then I'm the presenter, obviously, you already heard that. And then Kathy Myrick, the executive director of the San Juan Symphony, will be joining me a little bit later to talk about a recent virtual event that they did that was a huge success. So stay tuned for that. And then today you will learn 7 truisms, fundraising truisms, the impact of COVID-19 on nonprofits, 5 key online fundraising methods, a case study on a virtual event, and that is the San Juan Symphony, where to find donors, and then 8 cost-saving measures. So in addition to reinventing and strengthening your fundraising programs, nonprofits also need to be practicing frugality during this uncertain time. And I'm sure all of you are already doing that, but I'm just going to take a few minutes to talk about what that looks like today. So let's take our first poll. So what is your biggest fundraising concern right now? And please respond to just one of the options. What is your biggest fundraising concern right now? And then Tracy, I may need you to share the final results when the polls have been completed. All right, thank you all for participating. It looks like fundraising event cancellation is our top winner. And that's great, because that's what we're talking about today, is how you can replace some of those events and additional things that you can do to raise money online. I did a similar poll, I just have to mention this, a few months ago, and the #1 choice was uncertainty. So I find it really interesting that it's maybe shift just a little bit, because every day something different is happening. So thank you so much for responding to the poll, and I'm glad to know that the content for this webinar today, at least for the majority of you, seems to be appropriate. All right, so 7 fundraising truisms, or 7 principles of fundraising. The first one is that organizations are not entitled to support, they must earn it. Fundraising is not about raising money, it's about raising friends. And I know all of you have heard this, but it's really true. Fundraising is not about begging, conning, or guilting people. People won't give money if they aren't asked. Treat your donors as you would treat customers of a business. You don't decide today to raise money and then ask for it tomorrow. It requires a lot of planning and strategizing. And then your belief in the organization must be greater than your fear of asking. Sometimes I use these or similar versions of this list when I'm training boards to try to help them get more engaged in fundraising, because often we have disengaged boards and a lot of the fundraising just falls on our shoulders as executive directors or development directors. So I'm going to turn my video off for just a little bit and go through some more content, and then we'll be popping up a few more polls as well. So I feel like I need to acknowledge our current reality. None of us have experienced anything like the past 6 months, ever. And the cumulative impact of the global pandemic, the economic crisis, unemployment, and our country's racial reckoning has produced unprecedented challenges, especially for nonprofits. And I know you all can relate to this. Social distancing and stay-at-home orders have pushed nonprofits to innovate on the fly in order to survive. Those efforts have enabled us to learn a tremendous amount about what works and what doesn't when it comes to fundraising in times of crisis. And I'm hoping to share with you today some things that seem to be working in the sector. Organizations that have had success during the past 6 months have quickly adapted to virtual fundraising and donor-centric communications. Nonprofits that have struggled are those that have not been able to adapt or pivot to online giving, and maybe they haven't been able to diversify their base of support, so they're working with a limited number of donors. This webinar today has been designed for you to help shift your mindset from traditional fundraising strategies such as face-to-face asks and in-person events to online fundraising strategies. We will focus on individual donors and the use of digital tools such as websites, emails, social media, and videos. So I hope that's what you came here to learn, because that's what we're talking about today. So CAF America stands for Charities and Foundations of America, and their mission is to facilitate domestic and cross-border giving by Americans to validated charities across the world. And in the face of unprecedented challenges, nonprofits are demonstrating resilience through agility and determination, and they have been publishing reports monthly throughout the pandemic. So the report that I'm going to share some data from today is volume 5, and it's entitled The Face of Charities During COVID-19 Worldwide. And this report highlights some stories of different nonprofits around the world and relates the stories to the data that they collected by surveying over 400 organizations in 156 countries. So it's something that I've included as a download for you in the slides. It's really interesting to read and just kind of give you perspective on what's happening across the globe in the nonprofit sector. So, and by the way, this survey was conducted August 25th to September 2nd, so it's really current data. So I picked a few questions out of the survey that I thought might be of interest to you. The first one is, how long can your organization persevere under the current conditions before being forced to close down? So the organizations that responded to this survey, 1/2 said they will be able to remain open, 1/4 don't know how long they can remain open, and another 1/4 will be forced to close down within 12 months. And that's based on how things were going at that moment in time when they completed the survey. The next question is, did your organization receive funding from any of the following sources in the last month? So we're looking at corporate and foundation giving has been tied according to these particular organizations at 57%. The largest funding stream has come from individuals, which we're talking about individuals today, at 70%, and then government funding, 42%. Traditional revenue sources can no longer be relied on to sustain administrative and operational costs, as many of you know, even though I know quite a few foundations have lifted restrictions and allowed nonprofits to use unrestricted dollars for general operating. But the majority of respondents to this survey reported that because of this, they are focusing on innovating and adapting their fundraising strategies. So 83%. It's a pretty significant amount of nonprofits making this pivot. And then the last question that I wanted to share that was asked in the survey is, how did you adapt your fundraising strategy in the last 3 months? So 49%, almost half, have created new digital donation opportunities for donors. 36% created new products or services. 35% applied for public support, such as PPP. And then 35% focused on new donor segments. And 27% worked on engaging board members in fundraising. So let's take another poll. I'm curious, with those of you here, how much of your organization's revenue comes from individual donors? I just kind of want to take the temperature of where you all are with your individual donor programs. Thanks, Tracy, for posting the poll results. It looks like 36% of the organizations represented today have more than 50% of their revenue from individual donors. And the rest is kind of almost split evenly amongst all of you. That really helps me. I'm glad to know that some of you have higher percentages. For those of you who don't, that's fine. You may not need that. But if you're looking to increase your individual donor gifts, I think this webinar will be helpful. Let's talk about donor engagement. So I understand that it can be tough right now to prioritize changing your fundraising methods when you're struggling to meet an increase in your need for your services, or you're trying to just keep your doors open. But now is definitely not the time to stop fundraising or to stop engaging your donors and building relationships. So Network for Good, many of you know Network for Good. They have a donor management system that's very popular, and they produce tremendous webinars and articles, they blog. So they recently did a survey of 3,000 of their customers. And what they found out was that they surveyed their customers about their donors, and that their donors prefer transparency and proper use of donations. So 38% of donors, 28% of donors want the nonprofits that they support to communicate about their current work and share success stories. So that was their priority about what they want to be hearing. And then only 4% of the donors surveyed want nonprofits to limit communication. So the main reason that I'm sharing this with you is that donors are paying attention. There are certain things that they want and need. It's important for us to understand what that is with our own set of donors. But most importantly, donors are not wanting to hear from you. They want to hear from you right now. They want to be kept up to date on how you're doing and how things are going. So don't feel afraid to communicate with your donors right now. So let's do a quick interactive chat feedback. I would love to know, since we're talking about how to kind of shift traditional fundraising to online methods, how has your organization adapted its fundraising strategies since the onset of the pandemic? So if you could just pop in chat. If you haven't done any adaptation, that's fine. Those of you that have, I'd love to hear what that looks like. So just put a few ideas in chat and we'll all look at those together. I'm going to read these as they pop up, if that's okay with you all. Ellen Stein, hello, Ellen, says adding a virtual component to a traditionally in-person event. Great, thanks. We'll be talking about that today. I'm so glad that you're doing that. Anyone else? Adaptations that you've made that you'd like to share with the group? Cynthia Aspen says that they've increased their newsletter outreach and updates. Great, that's something I'm going to talk about today as well. The Hive in Durango has been working on an online auction. Super. Brigham, you mentioned board donations. That's good to know. I think that's one of the first places we should be going. Cindy Galabota, I hope I pronounced that correctly. You've spent the last several months communicating with your donors by phone, email, and snail mail. Well, I don't know. Maybe the adaptation there is that you're communicating more frequently. That's a fundraising strategy. There's a direct mail campaign that Tara mentioned. Whoops, sorry, you guys. I accidentally hit my mouse. Hosting virtual fundraisers and regular donor communication. It sounds like a lot of you are doing all the right things. This is so good to hear. I'm excited, and there's some experts in this room, so we'll have to figure out a way for you to be able to share some of your experiences and what has worked and what hasn't. All right, let's take another poll. What are the top 3 methods your organization is using to engage donors right now? Some of you just mentioned what they are, but I'd love for you to pick 3 options in this poll. And let's see what the most popular options are for this particular group of nonprofits.
Hi, everybody. It's Brigham. You can only vote for one, so just vote for your top one.
Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. So the poll results, which I'm assuming you all can see, it looks like social media at 33%. Closely following that is email at 25%, and then newsletters. Great. It's interesting that texting and videos weren't selected. We're talking about those today, so maybe those methods will be something that you will look into pursuing once I teach you just a little bit more about them. All right, so the 5 online fundraising methods that I will be reviewing today, one at a time, are virtual events, social media, website, mobile giving, which is sometimes also can be done by texting to give. And then we'll talk more about that. And then the use of videos. So let's talk about virtual events. The Association of Fundraising Professionals conducted a survey, and what they found out was that 64% of the respondents have had to cancel at least one event this year. 24% have canceled 3 or more events, and 50% have switched to at least one in-person event to a virtual event. So I'm sure that you all can relate to these numbers, and that this is really happening widespread throughout the sector as far as the in-person event cancellation, which we all know why. So many of you who have already transitioned have probably done this work and had these conversations, but for those of you who are in the process of making this change, ask yourself these questions. Why should we do a virtual event? Does it make sense for our organization? If yes, why does it make sense? Will it further our mission? And do we have the capacity to make this pivot? As I'm sure Kathy will share with you, it takes a lot of work to do this. And those of you that have done it know that it can be a lot of work, especially up front. So knowing whether or not you have the capacity is really important to think about. And then the decision to go forward with a virtual event is not always crystal clear. So in addition to these questions, consider these points. Virtual is not necessarily live. If there's not the need for interactivity at your event, you can do something that's pre-recorded. There might be something you can do to raise awareness or request support for your organization that's not necessarily on Zoom live with you in sequence. Partnerships are key. If you can do the event by yourself and you're thinking, I got this, great, but don't. It really requires, it's a village for sure to do a virtual event. And then be candid with your donors and prospects about what you hope to achieve at the event. If you're going to make an ask, or if this is a fundraising event, make sure that people know that so they're not surprised when they attend. So some examples of online events, for those of you that might not have your head wrapped around it, depending upon what you do, what your mission is. For example, animal organizations. Create a video to show how to trim a cat's nails, dog training tips, or puppy videos. Just thinking about things that might be useful for people during a pandemic, still kind of stuck at home. Arts organizations. Teach a class, hold a panel discussion with artists, host a performance or show a film. Social service organizations. Perhaps you could demonstrate how to assemble basic needs backpacks for people experiencing homelessness that a church group might want to distribute, or just what is useful for people experiencing homeless if you were to distribute items in your community. Or maybe you can conduct a training on the warning signs of suicidal behavior, knowing that the risk of suicide and the rate of suicide has increased during the pandemic. Educational organizations. Host student debates. Hold a pancake breakfast. Figure out how to make that virtual, just like we used to do in person. Or do a paddle raise to raise funds for supplies for teachers. And then youth organizations. Hold contests. They love contests. Play games or teach art classes. And then environmental organizations. Host a lecture, organize a nature scavenger hunt, or create an instructional video on how to recycle. So there's lots of different things that you can do to get creative. I would just assemble a group of people to brainstorm. If you're not sure, you don't have to replace the in-person event that you're usually doing with the exact same event online. Find other ways that you can engage people online and raise money. So let's talk about types of virtual events. So here's a just short list of different ways that you can raise money or raise awareness online using events. So formal from the waist up dinners. The photograph on the previous slide showed a box that arrived for a gala dinner that people were actually experiencing at home. So those have become pretty popular. You can still have conferences, host lectures, hold classes, demonstrations, performances, and on live auctions. online live auctions. And a couple of you mentioned in chat that you're doing auctions, and this is a poster from the AHA School for the Arts live auction that they conducted in July here in Telluride. And I know it was a lot of work for them, but they raised almost the same amount of money that they would have raised in person. They've been doing this event for years, and it was extremely successful. So just know, those of you that are doing that, I think there's hope, because it seems to be a format or a platform that really works for people. All right, let's talk about social media. This is virtual online fundraising method number 2, or virtual fundraising method number 2. So social media, as we all know, is an essential tool for your organization to build an audience, communicate your mission, and generate donations. It's ideal for quick announcements, posting photos, and two-way communication. And it looks like over a third of you are using social media right now to raise money, so that's great. So how many of you, if you can raise your hand, I'm just curious, I'm not exactly sure where that's gonna pop up, but we're gonna try it. If you can raise your hand, Tracy, you'll probably be able to see this. If you have a strong social media presence, and what I mean by that is that you're posting a few times a week, or maybe even daily, on either Facebook or Instagram. So I'd love to know how many of you feel that your organization has a strong social media presence. And Tracy, feel free to unmute and just let me know what you see on your end.
So touch your chat and see the hand.
So Denise, you can look at attendees to see the hands raised. We've got 12 hands raised of our 27 participants.
Thanks. I just don't have all the attendees pulled up, because then it's hard for me to see my content. So 12 hands, that's good to know that you have strong media presence. So for those of you that don't have strong social media presence, just be thinking about things that you can do to shift into that space more often. So social media right now, 25% of donors are donating through social media appeals and platforms. I have a really strong hunch that this is going to increase significantly as long as we're in the pandemic, and maybe even beyond. So here are some ways that you can use social media, things that you can do. There's so much more variety there than I think we realize. So you can conduct a survey, you can make calls to action, ask people to sign a petition, share stories, recognize donors, post videos, use Facebook ads, ask people to download a resource, and then of course, donate now. So it sounds like quite a few of you, a third, are using social media to raise money. And if you're not, be thinking about, there are lots of opportunities to learn how to do this, and you may want to talk to a peer or another organization that's already a little further along to learn what this looks like. But there are free webinars all over the internet for you all to take that are specific to this. And I know that Network for Good in particular is offering quite a bit around social media fundraising. So not all social media campaigns are about raising money. And that's the other thing I guess I want to emphasize is, while I'm encouraging you to use it as a fundraising strategy, it's also an opportunity for your organization to just people to learn more about you. So you can use your blog to write stories about your programs in the community you serve. You can let followers know that they can support you with a fundraiser of their own. There's just lots of different ways that you can use social media to just stay on people's radar and make sure that you're popping up on their news feed. So if you're not quite ready and you're not using social media to fundraise, it's fine. You'll have other opportunities to do that in the future once you've learned how to do that. So I'm going to skip ahead to a couple slides. We have a guest coming and it's not quite time for them to come yet. So real quick, I'm going to do a quick skip. First, what I'd like to do before I do that though, just because when I'm used to being in a room with you all, I know that you're used to being in a room with each other. Let's just do a quick Q&A. I'm curious about any questions that have popped up for you, whether you've put them in chat or not, it's fine. I'd love to hear from you to see so far what might be a burning question that you have. you can raise your hand and Tracy can take you off of mute. Tracy, are there any questions coming in?
Yes.
Great.
Okay, so I've got Catherine. I'm going to unmute you.
She has that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. Thanks. Hi, Denise. Thank you.
Hi,
I
Kathleen.
was wondering, even just from the other participants, you know, social media takes time and you need to be creative. And I think sometimes in my day, that's the one piece that falls off. Is anybody using a social media guru in the community who's looking to partner between organizations to share their expertise in that way, sort of like we do with graphic designers and other professionals?
So Catherine, would you like people to put that in chat or to come off of mute and have more of a conversation?
Sure, they could put it in chat if somebody knows of a professional in the community who does social media for nonprofits. That'd be great.
I think it's
Or
a great,
Denise, if you do.
a really good question, Catherine. The sharing of resources is more important now than ever, just because of limited resources and even the shrinking size of some of our staff. So let's see.
So Denise, we have another question from Ashley.
Okay, it looks like marketing concept squared is in response to Catherine Jessica Buell. So that's good to know. I'm so glad that there's somebody out there. It is, I mean, if you're running a small shop, it's really hard to, you really want a designated person who that's their focus to help with social media. Go ahead, Brigham, about the next question, sorry.
That's okay. Ashley Wilson has a question.
Okay.
Yeah, hi Denise. You mentioned earlier sort of text messaging campaigns. I think this is not something we've typically collected from our donors, so we don't have information to be able to send out any sort of like text message communication. And so I guess I'm interested, like, how would you propose us going back and starting to collect some of those pieces of information that just haven't ever really been on our radar to ask our donors for?
So there's a lot of different ways that you can do this and it won't seem pushy, but you may want to consider a donor survey where you're just asking a few questions about their communication preferences. And I'm going to be talking about communication preferences in just a bit. You want to make sure that you're communicating with your donors in a very targeted way, in the way that they want to be communicated with. So a donor survey asking about communication preferences, and if they select email, ask them for their email. If they select text or phone calls, ask them for their phone numbers. But you may even just be able to ask that as a separate question. We'd love to, you know, what is the best way for us to contact you? So you can do it as a survey that will serve multiple purposes for your organization. And I think it's also okay just to say, we are adapting our fundraising strategies to have more of an online presence, and we really want to make sure that we can stay connected with you. So please like our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, and what is your email address? What is your phone number? Just ask. But I know it probably feels a little bit like you don't want to bother people, but all you're doing is asking. They can decide whether or not they're going to respond.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then let's do one more question that's in the chat from Community Connections. It says, we're having a lot of fun choosing a virtual platform. Any tips on how to choose a platform that best fits our needs?
I love that fun is in quotation marks. And honestly, I don't necessarily have tips. I mean, I think if I was an executive director, I would be doing, or a development director, I would be doing a lot of research. I would be reaching out to my peers and colleagues that have already done this and have had success, or maybe they're even still struggling, but either way, they've made a decision about which platform to use. I know that Network for Good does demonstrations. I would definitely go through a demonstration before I signed up for any donor management or virtual fundraising platform. But I guess my main message here is don't feel like you have to do this alone. Talk to other people who've done it. Do your due diligence online, see what's coming up, and then narrow it down. But obviously budget what you're going to be using the platform for and talking to other people about what works for them. Those are my sort of off the top of my head tips.
Great. Thanks, Denise. Should we keep going or do you want one more question?
I think one more question. One of my guests is joining us pretty soon, but I could go ahead and skip ahead if you guys want. It's really up to you.
Well, I have one more question.
Okay.
So this is from Rebecca Levy. Most of our donors don't do social media. They respond in the old-fashioned way. Using social media would mean reaching out a whole new donor base that I'm not sure is connected to us. Are there good examples about how to pivot to social media?
Oh, wow. That is such a good question. So I guess what I need to understand, this is Rebecca, correct? Social media, are you using it at all? I mean, I would say you just want to get started, and then I would put, even on more traditional communications with donors, I would definitely, there's Sandra, great. I would definitely announce that you're on Facebook, that you're on Instagram, and you might be surprised at how many people are using social media now that you might not expect to. And I'm not saying that you move exclusively to social media, but it's one of your strategies, and it may help you reach a whole new population. So some type of campaign on Facebook, a way to collect names, one of these options here that's on this bulleted list. I would definitely try a few things out and see what works. This is really about experimenting, testing, and adjusting as needed. So pick a campaign, something that you think could be well received, highly visible, and try it, and then announce in other ways that you're doing, that you're online with Facebook, Instagram, whatever platform you're using, and just encourage people to like your page. You'll see, I mean, I know you get these types of requests at the bottom of an email, maybe even in a letter. You can ask people to go to Facebook and like your page. So just start trying to get people there. It's just like when we first started using websites. Websites weren't very useful unless we got people to the website. So I hope that helps a little bit, but I would just say try it. And this is the other thing, y'all. You just got to take some risks right now and try some things. And I'm not talking about high risks necessarily, but just do some things that may not be perfect and may not work and see what happens. So I have a guest joining us today, and it's Sandra Lawrence. She is with Sweet Farm, and I'm looking to see if I can find her in my videos. Hold on. There she is.
Hello.
Hey, Sandra.
Hi.
Hi. So nice to see you.
I don't know if you want to stop sharing your screen so everybody can see mine.
I will stop sharing my screen. So hold on a moment.
Yeah.
But quickly going to introduce you all to Sandra Lawrence is the Director of Development and Outreach for Sweet Farm, which is an animal sanctuary in California. And many of you may have heard of what they're doing, and she's going to tell you all about it.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Sandra, and I'm the Director of Development and Outreach here at the Sweet Farm Foundation. And we are a nonprofit animal sanctuary and heirloom vegetable and flower farm dedicated to creating a more compassionate and sustainable lifestyle. And like many of you on the call, COVID hit, and we had to quickly figure out how to pivot all of our programming and to figure out how to continually raise money, engage our donors, and figure out how to continue to keep our doors open and raise funds. So I'm gonna turn my camera around and show you how we kind of figured out how to do that. So luckily
Sandra,
for us,
are you screen sharing right now?
You should be able to see my screen by probably making me the main speaker for your guests there.
Okay, let me figure out how to do that. Hold on. Brigham and Tracy, can you help me so
Yes.
we can?
Denise, we are all set.
Oh, you are? Oh, sorry, you guys. I see something different from my end. So that's great. Who is this? Who is this? I love
So
it.
this wonderful lad here, this is Gizmo. He is a miniature Hereford steer, and he acts as one of our ambassadors here to educate folks and to inspire folks to live a more compassionate and sustainable lifestyle. And so here at our farm, you know, we as a nonprofit, right, you normally do a lot of on-site educational events throughout the year, and when the shelter in place happened, we had to shut our doors to the public, and on-site events for us typically resulted in about 60 to almost 70% of our annual revenue. And so we had to quickly figure out how to pivot that and continually raise funds for not only all of our animal ambassadors here, we have over 140 rescued farm animals, but continue to figure out how to not have to lay off staff and those sorts of things. And so at that point, no idea is a bad idea, and we're in the heart of the Silicon Valley here, and we have a relatively good Wi-Fi here on the farm, and we all have mobile devices. We all know how to work Zooms and all the virtual meeting platforms. And one of our board members came up with this really great idea about how wouldn't it be great if we could Zoom an animal into people's meetings to kind of lighten up the mood and brighten everybody's day, and ask for donations, ask for fees. And so we were able to do that, and we quickly, within 48 hours, was out taking our first calls in the fields, and we got a couple of media outlets out here the next few weeks later, and it just went viral. And luckily for us, not only were we able to raise money for our nonprofit, but we asked some partnering sanctuaries to help with call loads, and we were able to help other nonprofits raise money for their animals too. And for us, it was a matter of trying to figure out how to do what we did normally on site, but just in a different way because we couldn't be open to the public. And by asking people to donate for these go-to meetings, you know, we have meetings of different lengths, whether they're 10-minute calls, 20-minute calls. We charge different donation fees. So the 10-minute calls are $100 donation. 20-minute calls, we charge up to $250 for those. And we also created VIP calls as well, where you have our co-founder actually out doing calls for a premium price, and it kind of opens up the calendar and allows some of the larger corporations to have an availability to do that. And people are willing to do it right now. A lot of people aren't out spending money; they're getting cooped up, and we find that folks are willing to donate for a good cause. So I know a lot of nonprofits were very afraid to raise money due to the pandemic, but if you have a message to give, there are people out there willing to still listen and donate, and the donations were still coming in.
Thank you, Sandra. I appreciate it. I have a slide that actually has your pricing structure, so the attendees of the webinar today can see what you're charging and how it's important to ask for what the value is of what you're bringing to the customer, to the donor. Can you, I don't know if you shared this, I don't think you did, but how many requests have you had for GoTo meeting so far since its inception?
Yeah, so we started doing these calls, I think it was the third week in March, and we just reached over the 7,000 mark of requests. And so at our peak time, which was what, April, May, and June, we had over 20 partnering sanctuaries helping us with the calls. And so it was for us in educating folks about animal welfare and trying to live more sustainably. I mean, for us, it was one of the largest humane education campaigns that we could have ever done. And for a lot of people, for us, like they were enjoying just having the animals in on their calls. They didn't even realize that they were getting educated on Gizmo. And he came from 4-H, and he would have ended up on somebody's plate, but he didn't. And Argyle, who just laid down back there, you know, he got rescued from dairy, and he's considered a byproduct. And so people were enjoying the fact that they were out on a farm and seeing animals, but at the same time, they really weren't even realizing that they were being educated about our mission and kind of just planting the seeds of where these animals were coming from and what their lives would have been and now what their lives are. So
Well,
it was great.
I love it. And we actually have a chat that I want to read to you. I don't know, you probably can't see it, but from Mary Monroe, she put, "Hi, Sandra. I donated to Sweet Farm for GoTo meetings so we could have a llama at our meeting, as we were doing a lot of education around social distancing and the outdoors with the tagline, be the llama," or hashtag be the llama, sorry.
Yeah.
You can tell I don't use Twitter. So somebody here has actually heard of you and used you. I love it.
Yeah, it's been amazing. We've done calls all over the world. We've educated school groups where we have GoTo School now. And so it's a program that we've pivoted through COVID and that we will continue to do because it's been so popular and so successful. And so, you know, it's just one of those things, even during a time of crisis, it's about being creative and just really not being afraid to ask. Because, you know, we all have a wonderful message, whatever your nonprofit is. We all are passionate about what we're doing, and we can't be afraid to ask for what we're doing and succeed in what we're trying to accomplish.
Well, thank you for that inspiring message and for showing us Gizmo today. And I really appreciate you joining us. And I hope you all are safe and the fires are no longer threatening your farm.
Yes, thank you guys so much, and enjoy the rest of your presentation today. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Sandra. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, so I should be back to sharing the GoTo meeting web page from Sweet Farm's website, just so you can see a little bit about what they do and how they're promoting it. And the next slide, I just wanted to show you their pricing structure. It changed recently, so they're actually, they've created a couple of new categories. So I just thought it would be good. Brigham and I talked about this before the webinar, to just give you kind of a ballpark figure of what it is that they're charging. And if you do the math and you think about how many thousands of requests they've had and that they've fulfilled, this pivot has really been an incredible success for Sweet Farm and the other partner animal sanctuaries that they're working with. And I love that they just started GoTo School. I think it's great. So anyway, just wanted to inspire you all, no matter what your cause, no matter what your message, find a way, get outside of the box, think about something creative and different that you might be able to do to promote the services your organization is offering in the community. All right, GoTo meeting, there we go. So let's talk about websites as the third way to raise money online. And this is the Center on Colfax. They're one of my main clients. They serve the LGBTQ community. And I think the main reason I wanted to show this to you is, I guess I kind of just want to ask you all, why do you think I'm showing you this webpage? Take a look at it. What do you notice about it? This is their homepage. So when you first go to the center, this is what comes up. Any ideas? I'm going to pull up chat and see what you all are saying.
Donate now, button is front and center.
Thank you.
They have donate now 3 times.
Great. That's it. So you want to keep your website up to date. You want to change the content. I asked in a webinar that I did a couple months ago, how many of you have changed your website content since the pandemic started? If I were to go to your website, is it up to date? What are you reporting out on? What are you showcasing? But definitely using it as a fundraising page and even having specific fundraising pages. So the center has 3 places to donate on this one page, and they're all in, depending upon where you look when you're looking at this website. So if you don't have a Donate Now button on your homepage, I do it. And you might even want to put more than one on your homepage. So figure out a way to make that happen. We want to make it easy for our donors. They shouldn't have to dig around, or potential donors. They shouldn't have to dig around and look for the Donate Now button. So make it really easy to find. I'm curious if we could do the raise hands function again. How many of you have a Donate Now button on your homepage? I just would love to know based on who else here today.
It looks like we've got 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
And what's the total number of attendees so far, Brigham? I didn't.
27 attendees,
Okay.
more than half.
So that's more than half. Good to know. So just be thinking about how you can arrange for that if you don't have it. It's just one of the best ways to ensure that you're making it easy and accessible for folks to donate to you. All right, so let's talk next about the 4th, and I think this might be of interest to some of you, the 4th online fundraising method, which is mobile giving. So mobile giving is a win-win fundraising method. It's convenient, and it's really fast for donors. So here are some stats about smartphones and mobile giving. So 97% of Americans have smartphones. I'm sure that doesn't surprise you. All of you in this room today probably have smartphones. 25% of donors in a survey that was completed recently by Network for Good completed their donations on mobile devices. 37% of millennials have used a smartphone to give. And I love this stat, 75% of millennials report using a mobile device to look up information about a cause. So it may be that they land on your homepage and there's a Donate Now button, but they are using it as many of us use our computers. So they're using it as a navigation device. I have linked at the bottom, and you'll be receiving these slides, an article about which smartphone apps are most popular within the nonprofit sector. So you can take a look at that and see if any of those resonate with you. But text to give is really popular, and mobile giving apps. So the most popular mobile giving app that I know of being used is Givelify, and you can learn more about that by Googling it. But for text to give, your organization can create a unique text number to be shared with your donors, and then your donors send a text message to that number and they'll receive a donation page. So there's software available to actually be able to do that. It's just finding the one that really works the best for you. And then mobile giving apps, these are really typically social media type apps. Facebook, you can have a donate button, and then you can also create a custom app for your organization or use something like Givelify. And then you can share a link to download the app with your donors or your potential donors and encourage them to use it. So sounds like some of you might be interested in using mobile giving as a part of your fundraising program. Can I do another raise hands and see how many of you are currently using mobile giving apps or doing text to give? Either one of those. I'd love to know.
Should I raise a hand or not?
Sure. So it looks like, ooh, so far just 2, 3.
Yeah,
A couple
I
more
think
seconds.
this is, I think that really aligns with what I've learned from my research. Is this is one of the later strategies to be happening, but I'm sure as we continue to be in this social distancing space of a pandemic, and I think more and more people will be exploring this. So get ahead of the curve and check it out and see what it might look like for your organization. We have people lay in bed at night with their phones. I mean, we have them with us all the time. So thinking about how mobile phones give you a direct line to donors and potential donors. Okay, let's talk about videos. I'm going to turn mine off for a minute because I'm going to be sharing a video in just a moment. So the use of videos. Videos are used to tell stories, for you to share testimonials of your beneficiaries, clients, service recipients. You can show a donor's impact through a video. You can make an ask. And then you can thank donors both privately and publicly through the use of videos. So it is definitely an underutilized method. So videos are not hard to make. You all probably make them in your lives outside of work or even at work, but thinking about how you could use videos. They should be brief, authentic, raw. You're not trying to win an Academy Award. You're promoting an event through a video. You're sharing information. You're conducting a tour of a facility or doing what Sandra just did and showing us Gizmo. You can have clients, when appropriate, videotape testimonials, and then of course expressing gratitude and showing appreciation. So to keep donors giving, it's critical to make them feel appreciated and connected to your cause. So take the time to make videos, think about it, just get creative and think about what you might be able to do. Social media, you can post videos on social media. You can have them on your website. You can send a link in email. You can text a video to somebody. There's lots of ways to get this content to your target audience. And then taking time to acknowledge donors that you know would appreciate a special touch is really important. And I'm sure some of you are already doing thank you videos, but for those of you that aren't, just consider this. They're 1 minute or less, and I'm getting ready to show you 2 examples. They're casual, unscripted, and sincere. They put a face with your organization, but because you're making these in a personal way, you're thanking each supporter by name and personalizing your message. And then they make your organization stand out from other organizations. So thinking about how, I'm not encouraging you to stop writing thank you cards or other ways that you thank donors, but donors really love feeling connected, and videos are a great way to maintain that connection. So I'm going to stop sharing right now the PowerPoint, and I'm going to share some videos. So hold on, just got to do a couple little exits and escapes. Okay, and we'll talk about those 2 links that I shared at the bottom in just a moment. All right, so here's the first video. I hope you can all hear it. I've selected the right settings, so we'll see. I'm always nervous about this.
Hi, Diane. On behalf of myself and my brother Sean and all of the caregivers that we touch at Windward Foundation, I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of your support for our care package, Operation Hope and Joy project last week. I know you baked cookies and you sponsored a box, and the impact continues as they're starting to tell their friends and their family what we did, and we're hearing from a lot of people. And we have done nothing without the support of you and the other women at Social for Good.
Oh, I thought it was shared. I'm so sorry. Hold on.
Okay.
It's not letting me exit the full screen mode, so I'm not sure how to get out of this. Okay.
Try pressing escape.
Sorry, technology. Okay, here we go. And I'll just show it from this view. I hope you all can see this.
Like all of us, you know, hunker down at home.
Start it over.
Hi, Diane. On behalf of myself and my brother Sean and all of the caregivers that we touch at Windward Foundation, I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of your support for our care package, Operation Hope and Joy project last week. I know you baked cookies and you sponsored a box, and the impact continues as they're starting to tell their friends and their family what we did, and we're hearing from a lot of people. And we could have done nothing without the support of you and the other women at Social for Good. So please understand and please know how much we appreciate you. And as you spend this time, like all of us, you know, hunker down at home, just appreciate your family and the time that you have. And thank you again so much.
Okay, there's one example. It is 56 seconds, and here is an 18-second example.
Hi, Emily.
Well, if it'll let me play. Doesn't look like it's letting me play this. I played it earlier this morning, so. Well, I will tell you that she basically says, let me come off video and I'll pretend to be her. She basically says, hi, Emily. I want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your $50 donation. And she talks about how it's going to help the organization. And then she says, bye. So pretty quick. So I'm going to stop this share and then reshare PowerPoint. All right, so I hope you can hear me and see me. Sorry for that back and forth. It's sometimes a little clunky. We've already talked about how videos are an underutilized method and the importance of thank you videos. So these videos, as you can see, take very little effort. So the first woman was sitting at her dining room table, it looked like, and she was just speaking from her heart. Didn't appear that she had a script. Maybe she thought about what she wanted to say, but these can be really powerful to thank each recipient by name for a more personal feel. And then nonprofits that have been using videos to express appreciation report that when they're done more casually, they get a better response. So to try to make it fancy and create a independent film isn't the point. A couple of other ideas for using videos are during your year-end campaigns, you can use videos throughout the campaign to motivate your donors to give, or to motivate your donors to tell other people to give for a peer-to-peer approach. And then you can publicly acknowledge your donors with permission through videos as well, with an explanation of how their gifts have made a difference. And you could do that on social media pages, but make sure you get permission to acknowledge them publicly. So I guess what I want to encourage you to do is tap into the herd mentality. Thank donors publicly. It will help to encourage others to be like them. So make sure that you're using videos for personal, private acknowledgement, but also using videos to thank your donors on your social media pages. And so the two links that are at the bottom of the screen are two companies that have created software for thank you videos. So for those of you that are wondering how to do this, I'm sure many of you can just use your smartphone and make videos, but for those of you that have a larger donor base, you may want to consider some type of software. Thank you videos are embedded in Network for Goods donor management system, which I've never used personally because when I was an executive director, we were not doing this kind of fundraising and donor management. But ThankView and CauseVid are two companies that you can check out. And I actually looked at them and their rates aren't that outrageous. So it may be that you're even just subscribing for a few months after a big campaign or during a time when thank you videos would be really helpful for your organization. All right, so I would love to welcome now Kathy Myrick, the Executive Director of the San Juan Symphony. And we're gonna talk just a little bit about a virtual event that they just hosted this past Saturday night. And I attended. It was fabulous. And I just thought it might be useful for those of you in Southwest Colorado to hear from a peer about how her organization has pivoted and kind of what went into that. And it will help those of you that have yet to do this and those of you that are in process of doing it, and maybe even those of you that have already done it. So welcome, Kathy, for taking the time to be here today.
Thanks, Denise.
Do you want your video on?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see.
There
There
we
you
go.
are. Great. Hello. So nice to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good. So I would love to know. I attended, but I just from behind the scenes, How did it go on Saturday night, your first concert of your symphony season?
Well, it was a great success and it really went off without a hitch. We pre-recorded the concert on August 21st and 22nd at the beautiful Blue Lake Ranch in Hesperus with 13 socially distanced musicians. And we launched it live last Saturday night at our space at the Rochester Hotel.
That's terrific. I loved it. It was so well done. I was very, very impressed. I'm curious about kind of the thought and process and the planning process that went into pulling this off and making it such, not that you pulled it off, but making this virtual event so successful.
Well, honestly, most of our decisions were made for us. Maestro Thomas Heuser had already planned a very robust 2021 season, which included Mahler, Haydn, and Tchaikovsky. But in March, our venues closed. We perform at the Community Concert Hall in Durango, as well as Henderson Hall in Farmington. So we had no choice but to cancel our planned April concerts and our April Youth Orchestra concert. In April, the Durango train shut down, so we had to cancel our annual May fundraiser, which included taking the train to Riverbend Ranch for a dinner and silent auction along the Animas River. In May, we moved ahead with our planned end of season appeal letter, as usual, but we did put a heavy emphasis on setting up a monthly recurring donation through our website. Yes, we have lots of donate now buttons on the website, but a lot of people didn't realize they could set it up to send us $25 a month. So we ended up actually by the end of June, the end of our fiscal year, with a balanced budget. We really didn't lose any ground. We didn't gain any ground, but we were on an even keel. So later that month, Maestro Heuser started contingency planning in case we could not gather audiences together. And initially we had hoped we'd been able to record concerts or live stream concerts in the concert hall from the stage with no audience. As the regulations changed and the restrictions changed, we went through plans A, B, C, D, E, and F. On June 16th, the Community Concert Hall announced the closure through the end of the year and closed the ticketing office till the first of the year. So we knew it was now up to us to make a season and we weren't going to get any help from them. So that day, I found this blank journal in my bookshelves and I created, I don't know if you can see it.
Music at the time of,
Music at the time of COVID. So every note, every idea that we have had since then is recorded in this notebook. So this is why I can remember everything so clearly. We still, on that day, held out hope for an in-person season finale, not knowing what we were going to be allowed to do. Then that went by the wayside, and we had to make the decision that the whole season would go virtual, knowing that if we did that, nothing would have to be canceled and we could move forward.
So can you talk, I mentioned earlier that partnerships are really important when doing a virtual event. Can you talk about some of the partnerships you established? Because when you and I talked last week, I just found it to be so interesting how that all came together for you.
Yes. Well, the first partnership was our webmaster, because we knew we were going to have to redesign the whole website, install a paywall, and make things accessible behind the paywall, which we had never done before. So he was our first partner. And that was Corey Sampson at Sweet Pea Development, should anybody be interested. And then we had to contact a video team. I called in some of my artistic friends and we approached Drew Semmel at Illuminarts about creating either a live stream or a recorded video. We weren't sure what we were going to do at that time, but it turned out to be a combination of both. Then Drew led us to Kelly Rogers at Lightning Communication, and Kelly was responsible for the sound for the recording that you heard, as well as much of the lighting that we used in the big tent at Blue Lake Ranch. We purchased a 1-year subscription to Vimeo after we studied the various online platforms. We had to find a venue to record the concert, and we looked at several different venues in the county, but Blue Lake Ranch stuck out to us because they had such an enormous outdoor tent, beautiful views, and the potential to socially distance musicians under the tent. Then we approached Kirk and Laura at the Rochester Hotel, and they jumped on board to host the live stream on October 3rd. We contacted our usual season kickoff concert sponsor, TBK Bank, and they were all in to support our new vision. Sponsors, including TBK, all got the opportunity to submit 2-minute videos that would be embedded within the concerts. So they really, in many ways, got more for their money this season than ever before. And those videos will stay up on our website for a full year. So they'll have exposure for a full year rather than just one shout out from the stage. Then we decided if we were going to create a virtual season, we needed to make it as close as possible to a regular season. So we contacted our regular champagne sponsors of many years, Oxford financial planners, and they were all in to fund a champagne toast after each concert. And they went up by the Lion's Den at Fort Lewis College and filmed their toast for us. So that got embedded into the concert as well. Then Brigham approached me about a month ago about putting together a plan to promote the reopening of Primus restaurant downtown. So we put that promotion together very quickly. Primus put together a takeout menu at a 20% discount. So our Symphony folks who were used to going out to dinner before or after the concert could pick up their dinner late Saturday afternoon from Primus and take it home and enjoy it in the comfort of their own home while watching the concert.
Yeah, that's a lot of moving parts, Kathy.
Yeah.
So here, this is a question I didn't tell you I was going to ask you. I'm just kind of being ad-libbing right now, I guess. But did you ever feel afraid to ask for a partnership or for support? Because it just sounds like you really did just go out and pitch it and people were really receptive.
No. After we approached TBK and they cut us a check within 24 hours, all of our fears went away because we knew we had something to offer our sponsors and that they would get plenty of exposure for the dollars they spent.
Were there any surprises that resulted from this major pivot that San Juan Symphony did?
Our surprises were largely external. The ever-changing restrictions in Colorado and New Mexico. New Mexico required a 14-day quarantine for any musicians who came across state lines to record with us in August. So that was a hardship for some of them, but they didn't hesitate. They came, they played, they went home. Many of those musicians had not played music together in any form of ensemble for 6 months. It was 6 months to the day since our February concert. We did not anticipate that there would be a plexiglass shortage either. We had 3 wind players at the Blue Lake Ranch, and we needed to divide them from each other and from the rest of the orchestra with huge plexiglass shields. We did finally find some in Farmington that we were able to borrow and move up here. And we did not anticipate a monsoon would blow through. Well, we did anticipate that might happen in August, but not in the middle of the first recording when everybody's music blew off their stands and we had to run for cover. So they were external. They were not surprises that we brought on ourselves. Since Saturday, we have been nothing but pleasantly surprised. We've sold 200 digital season passes, 260, excuse me, on a budget of 300. And some of those, we're even selling them today because the music is now up on the website for the rest of the season or as long as copyright regulations will allow. And I just checked as of noon today, we've had 633 logins to our website, which translates to 1,000 plus people because the passes are sold to households. So all in all, that's more tickets than we would sell typically on a concert weekend.
That's really
This is Brigham. There's a Q&A question. It says, to anyone else who has broadcasted a live musical fundraising event, what are the additional costs incurred for producing an online event? And was it comparable to an in-person cost?
Well, all of my receipts are not in yet, so I can't be positive. I just have the estimates. It's not cheap because you need people with technical expertise, and you need a lot of them. We had 4 cameramen and we had 3 sound guys, and every person in the orchestra was mic'd. So I can't really give a one-size-fits-all answer. It depends how much you want done and how much time it's going to take to do it. But the way we looked at it, we only had to pay 13 musicians for the first concert because that's as many as we could gather together. So rather than paying musicians, we're happy to pay some of the the tech people in the background who are making it all happen. We wouldn't be able to do it without them.
Thanks, Kathy. I'm so grateful that you were able to join us and share your success. I had a really fun time on Saturday night joining and getting to see kind of how it turned out for you. So I'm happy that that it was successful and that you're continuing to have just a few days later, like really good feedback is what it sounds like. Do you have any, just real quick, any advice for people that want to do this? What are some pieces of advice?
Well, obviously the first one is line up your tech experts, because this is a whole new ball game with new language and new technical expertise, which will require a steep learning curve and substantial advanced planning. And then to echo what you said earlier, Denise, my second recommendation is jump in with both feet while following all the state and CDC guidelines. And you need to operate on the assumption that if you plan it, they will come. There's really no other way to manage 2020. And then thirdly, market the online season and market some more. Make the online process as user-friendly as you possibly can. Troubleshoot at every turn. If you go to sanjuansymphony.org, you will see this much information on how to navigate the digital season pass purchase, and the process itself is only about this long. So make sure that you communicate, over communicate with your constituencies so they can access all of the online information. And I'm happy to say I was running tech support behind the scenes on Saturday night, and I only had 2 calls, one who forgot her password and one who needed to refresh his browser, and everything else went smoothly.
Great. We just lost your audio for a moment, but I think you said one person who forgot her password and someone else.
And one who needed to refresh his browser.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Great. Well, I'm going to turn my video off because I think there might be some connectivity issues. So I just want to thank you so much. And Kathy, congratulations. Bravo.
Thanks.
All right. So sometimes connectivity issues happen in Telluride. So let's see if we can keep going. All right. What I thought we would do just toward the end to wrap up, we've primarily been talking about online fundraising methods to use with primarily with people that are already following you in some way, shape, or form. But let's talk a few minutes about how to find new donors. It's a well-known fact right now, and really always, that nonprofits are best served by looking inward at their existing network of supporters and deepening ties with their existing individual donors. But I know many of you are either new to individual strategies or you're just really hoping to expand how you're fundraising for individual donations. So for people you already know, these are just some ideas to think about where you can connect with people who you might be able to ask. So people who've already attended events in the past, or even events that you're currently doing virtually, subscribers to your newsletter, your volunteers, past beneficiaries. People want to give back, give them the opportunity to do that. And then peer-to-peer networks, asking your friends, family, board members, people you know, to ask their friends, family, and people they know to support a cause that they believe in. So you're just expanding kind of the ripple effect of who is being asked and who is learning more about your organization. And then you can find new prospects using multiple channels. And we're talking about multiple channels and using multiple channels for fundraising today. But these are ways that you can get new people and bring them to your organization and help them learn more about what you're doing. So I already mentioned the use of surveys earlier through social media, asking people to sign petitions, sharing your program impact and outcomes so people can really see how their dollar is being put to work, posting links to connect to content or resources, hosting free virtual events, providing status updates, telling stories to deepen relationships with people who are getting to know you. And then if you have an ongoing story of some kind, break it into little segments, especially for short videos for social media, and create a series on either a person or a program or a campaign, just like Netflix creates series. So note who responds to these different methods depending upon what you decide to use, request their current contact information, add their names to your database, and then from the list that you're building of new donors, create groups to engage them actively as followers who have shared interests. So this is a methodology that takes some time. It may not lead to an immediate gift, but it is acquisition through a variety of channels. And then at some point, the ask can be made and the gifts will come in. So just remember that we need to invite everybody to give as they see fit. People will become donors if they feel like it. It's our job to ask, and it's the donor's job to decide. So based on what you've learned today, if you could put in chat real quick, what are some strategies that you think you could use to motivate people to give to your organization? Strategies that you aren't currently using. What are some ideas that you gained today? So just pop a few of those in chat. I know the Q&A function is being used as well. So any information that's coming in from that particular channel, Tracy and Brigham, that you want to share with me?
Nope, we've taken care of those or asked them when we needed to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it looks like Cynthia Aspen said texting exclamation point.
I like Mandy being transparent about special needs during the time of COVID. I think that is so critical that we don't sugarcoat anything right now. We need, our donors want to know.
And Cindy says she loves the idea of using video to say thank you to donors.
Oh, Kelsey talks about using videos with youth. I think that's a great idea. They are down with that. They know how to do that.
Yeah, and looks like Durango Arts Center says thank you for the videos and texting.
Great. All right. Well, I'm glad that you got some ideas. We're going to talk about kind of the final piece is it's a really stressful time to run an organization. And I know I'm encouraging you to try new things, and there are only so many hours in the day. We really have to couple our fundraising innovation with also considering how to cut costs. So here are 8 cost-cutting measures that I want to share with you as we're really being tested in ways that we never imagined and under unthinkable circumstances. So the first one is just to take a close look at your non-mission critical expenses. So you want to identify what you're spending money on that you could hit the pause button on right now. This may mean that you're cutting non-mission critical staff members, or you're furloughing or laying off. But just, I think it really requires some deep thought, careful analysis, and it's probably a think tank kind of an effort. It's not something that you should feel like you have to do on your own. Renegotiate necessary expenses by requesting discounts with your vendors. Don't be afraid to ask them if they're willing to donate or to lower the costs for your organization, whatever that might look like. And some of you may have already done this. Understand your organization's cash flow and prioritize spending. This includes your cash on hand, your expected revenue, projected expenses, and any restricted grant dollars that may be released to unrestricted. And then see if you can convert the restricted dollars to unrestricted. This may be something that you have to ask, but are there opportunities with funders to do this? I know it's happened with many of my clients and foundations that they've received funding from. Not all foundations, but some. Share sources and establish new partnerships. There was a great example mentioned earlier by Catherine about, is there a way for nonprofits in the same community to share a social media person so they can get help with increasing their social media presence? Contact volunteers for your organization. There may be people that you haven't been in touch with since the pandemic started who have time on their hands and could help increase, you could help increase their engagement and involvement, and they could help you with things that you need at your organization on the ground level. And then temporarily freeze your non-essential programs. I know this is really hard. We all have sweet spots for things that we do that may not be considered non-essential, but hitting the pause button on some of these can help cut costs. And then consider using reserves, but use them cautiously, and then commit to restoring the reserves later when you're in a position to do that. So speaking of reserves, just like personal savings, there is never a perfect time to put more money away. But starting small and building over time will leave your nonprofit with more long-term sustainability and the sustainability that it needs to survive through these uncertain times. So this is a quote that comes from an article called Lessons Learned from COVID-19, The Importance of Operating Reserves for Nonprofits. It's written by Brian Aronson. He's a CPA with Bergen KDV. They're a kind of financial management firm. And he said, to be prudent, reserves should be used to solve temporary challenges, not structural financial problems. Entities without adequate reserves are left scrambling when there is an unexpected event or cash flow crunch. So I don't know if we were going to do a fourth poll because we're sort of running out of time, but I would love to know how many of you have had to dip into reserves since the pandemic, so during the past 6 months. And I know that you may not all have reserves, but raise your hand if you've had to dip into reserves. I would just like to know, kind of for the sake of my understanding of the audience.
Right now, Denise, it looks like there's 3 people out of the 25 attendees on the call right now.
Okay, and not knowing how many of the 25 attendees have reserves, I don't know exactly what that means, but it's just dipping into reserves is happening across the sector, but it really needs to be kind of the last option. But it's not something you should shy away from if it allows you to stay open. So I'm going to turn my video back on and hope that the internet here is working. I want to share with you the resources that I put together for you all, and I hope that they'll be helpful. So the first thing is the Face of Charities report that came out from CAF America that I mentioned earlier. And then there are 2 self-learning modules from Candid Learning. And Candid is the organization that resulted from the strategic restructuring of GuideStar and the Foundation Center. These are offered at a pretty low cost. I think they're $45 for each one. They're about 3 hours each. And as I said, they're self-pacing. One is on practical strategies for finding new donors, for those of you that want to learn more how to do that. And then the other one is on 8 steps for cultivating relationships with individual donors. So once you have your donors, how you can deepen those relationships. Oops, sorry, my bad. And then the next one is a great one from Network for Good, and it really aligns well with the content of today's webinar. It's 6 simple truths for turning your likes into donations. So it's really focusing on social media fundraising. And then another article called How to Thank Donors During a Crisis from the Chronicle of Philanthropy. It just was written and published last month. It has some great ideas. So I encourage you to look at that if you want to get creative in how you're expressing appreciation. And then the last one is Lessons Learned from COVID-19, the Importance of Operating Reserves. So the quote that I just shared with you, this is the article that Brian wrote. So Any questions that haven't been asked that you were really hoping to ask? I know we've gone over by just a couple minutes. We're almost done and we need to do our drawing. So if you have any questions, please put them in chat or raise your hand. I'm also totally open to receiving questions via email if something comes to you later that you didn't think of during this hour and a half together today.
Great. Thanks, Denise. Wow, what a lot of information you covered. We really appreciate the time and the effort that you put into this. I do want to let everybody know who's on the call. If you're a part of Southwest Colorado Gives, they have a video resource called Storyvine. And Tracy encouraged me to do that last week. And we have a video that we're going to launch, and you can see it. It's very professional. It's very easy. And it will be just a great resource for to kind of break the ice with a video project. Also, I do want to let you know we're going to do a door prize in just 1 minute. You have to be present to win. So linger with us. I know we're running a little over. We do want to remind you that we are continuing these Something to Chew On webinars twice a month through the end of the year. And so to see details, go to swcommunityfoundation.org/chew. In 2 weeks, Denise is going to join us again. And if you enjoyed today, spread the word, because she really does so much research and gives us so many resources. It's called Managing People in Pajamas: How to Successfully Build a Remote Workplace Culture. And so that's next time. And then on November 3rd, we have the Southwest Colorado Gives and your year-end ask. So there's a lot of really great content coming up. I encourage you to take a look. For some reason, my video is not working, but I'm going to go ahead and draw a name. And so I got to open it up. Oh, I don't know. So that one just logged off, so she's not going to work. How about Gordon South?
He's there.
If you're here, raise your hand. Great, thanks, Gordon. So thank you so much for spending time with us today. We really, really appreciate it. I think this content is great and it helps us connect. I know some of you had wanted to try and connect. Please feel free to reach out to your fellow nonprofit staff people and start a conversation. If you liked something that you heard or you saw in the chat that you want to share, please connect with each other. It's a really big part of being successful in rural Colorado, is to share connections and share knowledge. So with that, thank you so much, Denise. We appreciate all of your efforts, and what a great presentation today. And we will send out those slides later on today.
That would be
Guys,
great.
have a great day.
Gordon, email me or call me. I look forward to working with you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Sorry I went over a little bit. Bye.
Bye, everybody.